to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Rachel.
Hey, y'all.
And Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
Jesus forever.
I don't even know what that was. Was that supposed to be an accent?
Oh, it's leading into what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
All right. That's. Thanks, Alex, for that. No, thanks everybody for being here. We're coming on to Labor Day weekend soon, so everybody excited about that. Everybody got their plans, worked out. What's their pandemic Labor Day weekend look like? No, nobody. Did you get a little an American flag face mask for your party guests?
We did not. We are heading up to my in-laws. They live in South Sioux City. So my father-in-law had surgery a couple of weeks ago, and so we haven't seen him. Nothing like major, but we haven't seen them, and they're not able to travel and all that kind of stuff. And so my wife's the only one of those siblings that doesn't live up there. So it's just always a fun time. We'll hang out there and not really go anywhere, which we wouldn't do much at home.
Yeah.
And so that's our wild Labor Day weekend plans. So
Very exciting.
Well,
Sioux City, that is.
I was actually
South Sioux City. Sorry, I do need to clarify that
South
is very
side.
important.
So is that in South Dakota then?
It is in Nebraska.
Or it's in Nebraska?
Yes. So South Sioux City is Nebraska.
It's in 3 states,
boy.
isn't it?
North Sioux is South Dakota, and just Sioux City is
in
Iowa.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't. Anyway, that's it. Now.
Okay. I'm glad that you
Wow.
clarified
Yeah.
that. Go,
Thank you.
Go Big Red. Rachel, you're starting to say something. Well, he said it was in Nebraska.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I was actually planning to go to Mexico, and so that's not happening anymore. But
Ooh, like where? Cancun?
yeah, actually.
Oh, that sounds fun.
The common place that people go. But yeah, we were gonna go there, but instead we are just going to Arkansas. Good old Arkansas,
Does your accent come back when you go?
Oh, yeah, it gets really bad. I actually, whenever my family calls me on the phone, Eric's always like, you get really Southern whenever you're talking to your family.
love
Like,
it.
I have no idea, but
That's so
apparently
funny.
it
Comes
happens.
out.
It just comes out, yeah.
Do you always
But-
visit the first Walmart store when you go back? Is that a
Oh,
thing?
yeah, for sure.
At
There's a
Bentonville?
museum. We go every time.
Walmart
It's-
museum?
Yeah, it's real. There's ice cream and everything.
Is there a
so-
wax statue of
there really
Sam?
is?
Of
Yeah,
Sam
there really
Walton?
is a Walmart museum. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to see waxy Sam Walton. You
Really?
push a button and he's like, I thought of selling things for 96 cents instead of 99.
So
That's
smart.
the way Sam Walton talks, by the way.
But I may be getting a tattoo
What?
this
Oh,
weekend. So
Rachel.
A Labor Day tattoo.
A Labor Day tattoo, yeah.
Wow.
So
What about your husband too?
maybe it might be a family thing. My
Okay.
sister-in-law's turning 21, so she kind of
Yep.
was wanting to do a
If you're
family
gonna do it,
activity.
I'm
and-
turning
Do it.
21. I want everybody to think
Do
of
it on
me.
someone's 21st birthday.
Are you all getting a Kuna Matata tattooed on your foot?
Exactly.
What a wonderful phrase.
Yeah, I know. It means no worries for the rest of your days.
No, we're just each going to get a different piece of a heart placed on our feet, and then when we put them together, it's just going to be one big heart. No, we're
Part of me
not
hopes
doing
that's not true.
I love Jess's
Dude,
face.
I fall for it every time. Like, let's start over. Okay, let's do
Jess was so amazed by this foot tattoo.
Wow, I'm going to be supportive.
So good.
I don't even know how to top that.
Where are you getting your tattoo this weekend?
Yeah. You and Ben have matching tats?
No. Maybe someday.
All the cool couples do.
Maybe it'll happen now that we're talking about it. If he hears about it on Uncomfortable, I mean,
Has to.
yep, he's doing it. We are staying home, not going many places, same as all summer long.
Yeah.
We'll probably, get a little crazy and put the sprinkler onto the trampoline.
Your insurance
Wild.
hasn't contacted you yet. After
Still
you
have it.
release
Still
that.
have it. Got that private backyard.
At least going to grill out, maybe?
Oh
I mean,
yeah, we'll
okay.
grill out. We all my extended family is on my mom's side they're farmers, and so we buy like a fourth or a half of a cow every year. So pull out some fresh steaks and
Oh,
do some
wow.
grilling. Yeah, that's my favorite. So
Sounds nice.
yep. It's always nice when just an extra day off work too.
Oh, yeah.
The looking at the rest of the week feels short.
I'm just going to be sitting around pondering,
Tell
why
us.
Labor Day was, or why it originated, and how children used to work in coal mines in the 1800s, and now we celebrate Labor Day to honor them.
Yeah,
So-
that's a
Eric's always got to take it there.
thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
He represents
Yeah.
history.
But I do. Every time Labor Day comes up, there is a debate. There are, and I'd like to just know where you stand on this. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
There are white pants, no white pants after Labor Day people, and then there's white pants all throughout the year
Yeah.
people.
Isn't it a shoe thing too? Wasn't it for some people?
gosh.
Maybe for some
It is,
people.
yeah. White
Yeah.
shoes.
Yeah.
So I want you to know.
Where do
Honestly, I don't ever wear white pants. I don't foresee
You
myself
should.
doing it. But
You
if
could
I
pull it
did
off.
wear white pants, or for my daughters at this point in their lives, I'm definitely a non-white pants after Labor Day person.
You just decided to
Eric.
draw that line?
I feel like I've heard it before. And
Okay.
So got to take a
Wow,
stance.
Alex.
I don't think it matters anymore, to be honest.
If
I
you-
think you can just...
If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything, Eric.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to wear white pants like all fall long.
no.
No way, Alex.
Just. Are we debating this?
Yeah.
No, not debate. Just word it. What's
Okay,
your
we're
point
having
of view?
some healthy dialogue. Got it.
What's your point of view?
Okay, so my point is that no white pants after Labor Day was to separate old and new money, so it was a status thing. So if
Oh,
you wore
snap.
if you wore white
Whoa.
pants after Labor Day, you were basically saying, "Hey, I have more money than you," because people would be traveling and wearing white pants. So
Exactly,
that's where
which
it
is
came from.
exactly why I don't
So-
want my daughters to.
Oh, sure.
They do this thing where they read every night. I'm not better than anyone, and no one's better than me, and so
Amen.
I want them to know.
So, did I just sway your opinion?
No, you solidified.
Okay,
it.
good. That and isn't it? Aren't we always after Labor Day? Technically, like right today is still after the last Labor Day.
Wow.
So
That's deep.
That is deep.
I don't even know
that's my
where to
other
go.
one.
Yeah.
My third point is if
has 3
We
points.
said we're not dedebating. You just have to
How
say
did
which
you-
one.
She thought about this a lot.
guys. I'm feeling sharp right now, so I got to do my last point. If navy and black can be worn together and people can make that a little family, what's the big deal? Okay, so you do you, boo.
Okay. Any strong feelings on this?
I'm no white pants any day
Okay.
because I just can't I miss my mouth with food a
Got
lot.
it.
So it's just not a good idea in general.
Yeah, then you have stains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whenever you wear a light colored shirt or anything, it's
It's just-
scary. It's
yeah.
a stressful time.
It's a stressful day, really. Just
Yeah, you're like,
it
what
is.
if I drip coffee on my white shirt?
over.
It would be really
It's all over.
scary. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. It stresses me out. I'm wearing a white shirt right now.
Oh,
All right.
But you got a little jacket to
Yeah, it's
to protect.
covering up all my coffee stains. All right, up next, headlines. All right, our first headline this week comes from CNN.com. It says Twitter's most liked tweet of all time now belongs to Chadwick Boseman, which I think it belonged to Ellen before that. Wasn't it a selfie with Ellen at the
Yes.
Oscars or something like that? I think.
At one point, I don't remember for sure.
She probably got surpassed. Anyways, I mean, really, that's just kind of an extra note on this whole situation, but it's really just this terribly tragic death of losing a really brilliant actor of our generation way too early. I think he was 43, I believe. I keep seeing headlines that are wrong, are like contrary to each other, so I'm not sure. Like I'll see a headline that says he was 42, one that says 43. It doesn't matter. It was too young. There's so much about this story, so much about him as a person and his character, and the fact that he was battling this cancer for 4 years and nobody really knew about it. Like the way he just continued to work and to bring joy into people's lives, and didn't ask us to suffer with him or anything like that. He just kind of kept it quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I've seen a lot of things with him and Kobe. I mean, Kobe's birthday was like, I think last week, and so people were talking about that, and they had a relationship, obviously, from LA and stuff like that, but it's just a very stark contrast. Kobe died this year, and it was a big deal and very sudden. And then you've got on the other spectrum, it felt very sudden, Chadwick's, but then that's because we didn't know. Like most people didn't know the guy was suffering from this, for 4 years. And you can see that because, I mean, I think actor or someone like that lives in the limelight. In some ways, you've got people that will find the weirdest, worst, whatever pictures of them and expose them. And we even saw that over the last few months, I think, of people like saying, "Oh, this guy got super skinny," and kind of we're bullying him. Which it would be interesting to see, like how much. I don't know. I'm not always convinced that those people have souls that do that paparazzi stuff, but how much like that perspective does change because that just happens for actors. It goes up and down depending on the role you play and stuff like that. But like how much you're like, oh wow, like this is why, And so anyway, so I think that was a sad part of what happened as well.
I think there's a lot of that going on just even this year of just like learning that we don't know people's backstories and just like I think a lot of people are starting to see kind of the results of like just making fun of someone or talking about someone or assuming things about people and then realizing when you hear the backstory what that actually means and what I think it's giving people a little bit better perspective on how we should be approaching situations or people instead of just jumping to what we think are our assumptions, but trying to think through, well, what could the backstory be? How could this be received? And I think another thing, especially with this, I saw this cartoon after his death.
The little boy.
Yes, it was a Black Panther poster, and then there's these two little black kids pointing at the poster saying like, it's me, and like they're just so excited about the representation of that. And I think that was another huge hit for people of just like seeing that there was so much representation in that movie, and then now this guy who represented that has passed away, and I think that was really hard for people too.
I just couldn't believe all the parents who were like posting videos telling their kids that Black Panther had passed and just like watching the heartache.
Yeah.
I mean, that it almost felt cruel in some ways, but it did show the impact he had and what Black Panther stood for beyond just being a comic book superhero movie, just kind of like you said with the representation to that community.
Yeah, and that cat, like I hadn't watched the movie. I hardly ever watch movies, so it takes a lot for me. And afterward, I'm like, I need to watch this movie. So I spent the last couple of days, and it was crazy. I mean, just his craft, like that's not amazing. Like learning that the dialect and all the kind of stuff that he put into it, and then the message behind even that movie, and
he had so much care looking into that character. Like he had asked, I read, he wanted his character to have a South African dialect when he was speaking, and so he like worked extra to do that, and just everything that he brought out. I mean, he was a hero to so many people, and he represented something that people are grieving now. It's really sad. It was shocking.
Yeah.
Black Panther is our son's favorite Marvel character, and I still haven't told him because like I don't know. I just I haven't yet. Still processing through that.
And I think one of the things I did see too is like his ability to be gracious with, and I didn't even know, I think it was Denzel Washington who had, gifted a scholarship for him. And I was watching this video where he was honoring Denzel this week, who historically, and he's been one of my favorite actors for a long time, but it was even kind of that cool ripple effect thing where he was sharing like, if this guy Denzel didn't give this scholarship or reach out, then Black Panther isn't something. So even then, it was this reminder of, man, the way that we invest into whoever it is, like somebody that doesn't have opportunity, you'll never, it's that whole planting seeds for trees that you won't get to sit in their shade idea. And so that's such it's such a cool even backstory behind something like that of what became from someone's investment into somebody they didn't know but wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity without it. So
really, really powerful and sad, just sad for a lot of reasons. But moving on to something a little more lighter and local headline here. It's about
concerning.
It's about a Lincoln man who had a very strong plea that he brought to the city council at Lincoln, and I think that it would be best served for us just to watch this video or
let's
listen.
share it. Yeah.
So you don't really need to watch it. You can just listen to it if you are not watching this right now. But let's check it out here.
And then Jane, and then you. Okay?
I promise I won't take up too much of your time here. My name is Ander Christensen. I live at 1212 Twin Ridge Road. Lincoln has the opportunity to be a social leader in this country. We have been casually ignoring a problem that has gotten so out of control that our children are throwing around names and words without even understanding their true meaning and treating things as though they're normal. I go into nice family restaurants and I see people throwing this name around and pretending as though everything is just fine. I'm talking about boneless chicken wings. I propose that we as a city remove the... Excuse me, I'm trying to...
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Sure. Come on.
I propose that we as a city remove the name boneless wings from our menus and from our hearts. These are our reasons why. Number one, nothing about boneless chicken wings actually come from the wing of a chicken. We would be disgusted if a butcher was mislabeling their cuts of meats, but then we go around and pretending as though the breast of the chicken is its wing. Number two, boneless chicken wings are just chicken tenders, which are already boneless. I don't go to order boneless tacos. I don't go and order boneless club sandwiches. I don't ask for boneless auto repair. It's just what's expected. And then number three, we need to raise our children better. Our children are raised being afraid of having bones attached to their meat. That's where meat comes from. It grows on bones. We need to teach them that the wing of a chicken is from a chicken, and it's delicious. I propose that we rename boneless wings in the city of Lincoln. We can call them buffalo-style chicken tenders. We can call them wet tenders. We can call them saucy nugs or trash. We can take these steps and show the country that where we stand, and that we understand that we've been living a lie for far too long. And we know it because we feel it in our bones.
Wow.
I feel that in my bones.
You have it. That was a very impassionate plea to the city council to rename.
That is not real.
It is
That
real.
is
It happened
not-
Really
yesterday.
went before the.
Yeah, you went.
But he's not being serious. There's no way that he's being serious.
No, he listed his
The way
his
that
contact
the
information.
wording, I mean, that was just too
He
funny.
very seriously rebuked the guy who was laughing behind him
Yeah.
at his proposal. I mean,
Oh my God.
we needed that. Okay, we just needed it inside of like culture. Every time you're in like a city council environment or anytime, like I saw that posted, I'm like, oh gosh, what someone's
What did
going
this guy
crazy.
do?
It's probably
Right.
about masks. What in the world
Yeah.
is going on? And then I like start listening to it, and he opens it so beautifully, like it's a big concern.
Yeah.
Like families are like lives depend
Being
on it.
affected.
Cultural,
Yeah.
like the whole.
We need
Alex
to
is-
raise our
country.
children
Alex
better.
is literally crying right
Yeah,
now.
So it was so good.
But I mean, he does make a lot of good points.
He does.
I
He
mean,
he
let's-
basically
let's-
had me sold on.
I mean,
Point
really,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're already boneless.
There is a lot of
already.
deception that's happening for kids.
I mean, they're chicken nuggets, right? I mean, that's
Saucy nugs, bro.
trash.
Yeah.
Trash.
As
Yeah,
some
that
would
was.
say.
I don't know. I've had this conversation with my kids and my wife and friends and family, and it's
Yep.
it's always the
Yep.
thing of like, a lot of people prefer the boneless wing, but it really isn't a wing. So
I do. I prefer the boneless wing for sure.
I always
really? That's
wonder
what I was
how
wondering what
they-
you guys
how they
choose.
got the bone out of it without messing with the structural integrity of of the wing. But
yeah,
It's the breast.
it's not a
Well,
wing.
even like the drumstick and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a little not actually the wing, you know. I mean, it connects to it. And we could sing that song,
Yeah.
this bone connects to the hip bone.
I'm just impressed that they let him keep going. Like they heard him out, and
they probably needed it too. They just needed
they
something
needed a
light, just
break.
like yeah.
yeah.
He is. I mean, the way he kept it together, it takes a special person to be able to keep that together, to have some people like behind you laughing, even though you know, like, okay, this is awesome. This is kind of maybe satire. And then just to keep it up and like correct the guy and just go on with
He
it. And
knew the world needed it.
I couldn't tell. I didn't see it in HD, but I'm pretty sure he had hamburgers on his tie.
I know. That's what I was looking at.
I feel
Oh,
like,
man.
and so
All right. I think we all needed it. It was good. That was brilliant. All right, coming up next, Alex, you got a chance to sit down with Carey, an international worker, to talk about all sorts of things about, working internationally and what that looks like, and, just how culture is very different when you kind of come back to America, and our concerns may seem a little different than theirs. So that's up next.
Welcome to America.
Carey, thanks for joining me today to have a conversation, just get to know you a little bit. I know you're a beloved person here in our CCC family, and so you don't live in Omaha anymore, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? So you have some CCC roots, and you are in Omaha, but you don't live here anymore. So I don't want to tell your whole story. So tell us a little bit about who you are and your connection to CCC and what you're doing now.
Yeah. So my parents are here in Omaha. My family, I grew up in Bellevue, went to Bellevue East High School. Go Chieftains!
Chieftains, all right.
and then when I was high school, we started going here to Christ Community Church. And then went away to college, worked for a while, got a nursing degree. And then when I came back to Omaha, got more involved at Christ Community and actually heard some people speak about a hospital that was to be started in the Gold Kingdom, which is a code name for the country I work in.
Yeah.
And then said, you know what, Lord, if that is something that you would open the door for me to be able to do at some point, I would love to do it. And so, yeah, those doors opened and I went over there and I've pretty much been there ever since. I did come back for a master's degree in that time, but yeah, for almost about 12 years now, been working in West Africa as a nurse.
Wow. So we talk about, and I think people that especially go to CCC have heard about this hospital that's there, and we had a part in building the infrastructure, raising money, and helping with all that stuff. But what does specifically that hospital look like? What does it specialize in, and what are kind of what's the I guess medical stuff that happens there, and then we can talk about like how there's maybe a spiritual gateway there as well.
Yeah, so the hospital started out as a small little maternity clinic, just prenatal visits, labor and delivery services, some OBGYN surgeries, had about 12 staff members. I mean, it has grown tremendously through the years. And now, it started in 2006, opened in May 2006. Now we're, almost 15 years later.
Yeah.
And we have pediatric surgery, so lots of the vaccines, all of that, and then of course all your women's services and even some male surgeries, general surgery, HIV. I mean, it really has become a very full service hospital, and we have about 200 employees.
Wow.
About 120 nurses aides, African nurses and nurses aides, and there's a handful of us, maybe 6 of us. American nurses or Western nurses working there, white people nurses.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So why there? Like what even led people to build a hospital there? What was like the need? Why did you specialize in maternity and all that as you began? And I guess how'd that begin?
Right. So the organization I work for is also affiliated with the church is affiliated with this organization. And there had been nurses in particular, working there actually since 1923 in this country, but obviously seeing huge amounts of medical needs, and had started some rural health centers in villages, remote areas, just to do deliveries, but seeing over and over the need for more advanced care, seeing over and over the women not being able to get specifically a C-section in time, or getting IV antibiotics or a blood transfusion. I mean, just simple things you think, gosh, like surely they could get this, in year 2000 or 1990, but they weren't getting it. And so that was birthed the vision of a larger center where people could be referred to get their safe C-section and get their more advanced care. So that was the original vision.
Yeah. And so a lot of babies have been born there, right?
A lot of
Do you,
babies.
what's like the count up to, or I guess your rough
I
estimate?
know
as
I
far as
haven't
you know?
looked lately, honestly. So
You guys have like a baby dinger or something like
we
that?
should.
That updates
We
you all the
totally
time?
should. We should have like some kind of light or
Yeah.
a bell that goes off.
A notification
or something.
every single time.
Yeah. So I think we're over 30,000
Wow.
now deliveries, and we have about roughly 300 a month. 250, 300 deliveries a month at the hospital. So it's a
Wow.
lot. I mean, it's 10 babies a day.
Yeah.
On average. They're really
Yeah.
having babies over
They
there.
are. And so what's that done like in that region? Like what are some of the benefits you've seen, like infant mortality rates, things like that? Has that been better?
Yeah,
Like, how have you
definitely. I think, it's hard to judge it. I mean, statistics are
not, easy to come by.
Right. And they don't do statistics, they, every year. So it's difficult. But yeah, we've definitely seen, a change in maternal mortality, especially in our area. And I definitely think our hospital is delivering the majority of the babies in our area. There are some other clinics and hospitals in our town, but we're seeing a lot. So, yeah.
So you help people give birth to new life.
Yeah, so
there.
I don't actually work in the delivery
Yeah.
room. So I work in, I've worked in training our African nurses, and then also most recently caring for our cancer patients. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I was more speaking, this was me trying to Jesus juke it a little bit, so saying that the hospital gives birth to new life. But one of the overall hopes there as well is to bring the gospel to people in a country where that's not, that light of the gospel isn't as readily available in, scripture, Bibles, just
Right.
a belief in Jesus. And so how have you seen meeting this basic need of helping babies, mothers, people with cancer, all of that? How have you seen it begin to translate to a mission that's beyond just health physically?
Yeah, so the whole vision from the beginning of the hospital was that it would be a Christian hospital. And so in a country where it's 1% to 2% Christian, majority Muslim country, that's, a tall order and hard, difficult with even just employing all Christian employees and that kind of thing. But yeah, the idea was for it to be a light in the community to show the love and compassion of Jesus Christ. And that's definitely a motto of the hospital. And it really has just really softened the soil, so to speak, in that whole area for people to come and listen to stories about Christ and hear the gospel and be prayed for, and all of that is just very combined at the hospital with medical care. So it's just meeting at that felt need of a medical problem that people have, and then showing Jesus along with that.
That's cool. I love it. So just like an update, we're in the middle right now in the United States and worldwide of a global pandemic dealing with coronavirus, COVID-19. So what's it look like right now in Gold Kingdom? Like how are they dealing with it? Is it affecting them in the same ways as it is here? What's just the temperature there?
Yeah, well, we're very thankful that it didn't get out of control in Gold Kingdom. Right now their numbers are low. I even checked this morning just to make sure I was, current, and they had 6 new cases in the last day. 6. It's really pretty. It really has slowed down. In total, amount of cases about 2,500, with about 125 deaths in a country of 20 million.
Okay, that's what I didn't know. How many people.
So that really, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And so we're just thankful and not really knowing why. Maybe the hot weather, maybe the fact that people are outside and not in enclosed spaces with air conditioning. Who knows? The Lord's grace on that country. But Africa really, certain parts of Africa became little hot spots, but Africa was so far has been spared this one. So we're so thankful for that.
Yeah, because I think as an American, a lot of times we hear of like Ebola or things like that begin in Africa, and we're like, hopefully it doesn't come here. And we think we have the best medical care. We have the best. We think we're the best at everything, right?
Yeah.
And you might be able to speak into that maybe even more. But to hear that, like that's staggering to me.
Yeah,
Like,
it's amazing.
Omaha has obviously had way more than all of those numbers, and we've got less people, and we've got UNMC, right? We've got like one of the
healthcare
in
all
the
over.
world,
Yep.
like one of the best biocontainment units, and so that is cool.
Yeah. We did a lot of training on COVID before I left. I came back in May, and so March, April, really just trying to get good information out there and not really knowing how it was going to affect that country. And so we'd get the question, well, it's what about the hot weather? It may not come really, may not come here so horribly, or is Europe? And you're like, yeah, but look at the devastation it's had on Europe and the United States. If it comes here, this is going to be bad, you guys. And so I think they got it, but it was, praise God, it hasn't really blown up there.
So you actually came here when? Came back to the US?
I came back in May.
Okay.
And
how was that, like, getting here?
Weird. No, it was good. I was thankful to get a flight. It was a flight coordinated through the U.S. Embassy called a repatriation flight, meaning they're going to repatriate or bring you back to your country.
Okay.
And it was very interesting to fly back during that time. Yeah.
So because you were a U.S. citizen, like there was a special
So there was a special organized flight by the State Department because I was a U.S. citizen for people. It was for people who could come back to the U.S. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you talked about growing up just in the church, and even specifically at this church, and in the United States, Midwest, Nebraska, nice kind of culture. So what would you say are some of like the biggest, assumptions that you had about just church, like the word church, what the church is, theology around a church that you went to West Africa with, you left Omaha with, and what were some of the ways that have those changed? Have they not changed? Have they grown even deeper convictions? What's that like looked like? Just your opinion of what we define as church. How's that shaped up as you've been over in Gold Kingdom?
Yeah, I think I come back with just such a deeper appreciation for the church, and just realizing how blessed we are in America. We have so many churches. You can choose any church you want. If you don't like this, you can go to someplace else. Even with this whole online thing, you can literally peruse churches on Sunday morning, right? And so just to think about, wow, when you move to a place where they just have no option. Some people don't even have church. Some people are biking or walking miles to get to church. It's really puts that in perspective, and just makes me so grateful, and that we have so many churches and so much access to church. But at the same time, it does make you realize there's a lot of extra churchy stuff around in America that maybe isn't necessary or isn't, as important, like how just we want to attract people, make people feel really comfortable. And that, obviously in Africa, they don't have that, but they just value so much being together, worshiping God. It's just very simple, unassuming model.
Yeah.
That when you come back here and you're kind of, blown away a little bit by just how elaborate we've made it.
Yeah.
And the priorities we put on things, you're like, really? It does kind of make you second guess a little bit about that kind of thing.
Yeah. What would you say is just the difference in at CCC, one of our DNA statements is we are contributors, not consumers. What does that look like in, a place like Gold Kingdom, as far as even church? And you mentioned people, biking there, and what does it mean, I guess, to be a part of a church there? What's even a gathering look like? Is it small group led? Is it just a Sunday morning gathering? If you say, I attend church, I'm a Christian, what does that even mean in your daily, weekly life?
Yeah, so there isn't, with, a country, it's 1% to 2% Christian, and that includes Catholics, every, type of Christian.
Yeah.
And so, there isn't a lot of just cultural Christians there. If you make that statement and you say, I'm a Christian, you are, you got to be pretty legit.
Yeah.
You're pretty hardcore. You're really committing to this, because it's not going to be something you're going to be able to kind of just skate through in life, because you really will face some persecution, and some, your family will look at you weird, your jobs, those kind of things. So I think I've kind of forgot the question.
I guess just that call. Or what's it look like, on a weekly basis?
So they have Sunday morning gatherings,
Okay.
and then they'll have usually a women's group midweek. Men will also have a midweek gathering. They do a lot of fasting and prayer, so it's not, sometimes Sundays we'll have a fasting, a day of fasting where people stay late at church to fast and pray. They're inspiring. They are very committed, and the services are long. 2 hours, not uncommon at all to go 3 hours. Hard benches crammed together, no AC, coffee, it's, it just is, and they just want to be together and gather, and it's, and they're very committed. And so, the children, they do have a Sunday school class. Children will sometimes go off, but it's all the children together. There's a few teachers, they'll memorize verses. It's very simple. And it's not so concerned about comfort. It's just, no, we need to do this because we're committed and we're obeying.
Yeah, that's good. And I know you have some other friends that were on this podcast before that serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're international workers that serve over in Africa. And they even shared more about some of the challenges, like as somebody who has left, a faith that they grew up in, and has converted to Christianity, like what it costs them, it costs them really everything.
That's right.
Family, it costs them careers, it costs everything. And so, if you're somebody that's listening right now that's like, hey, what does that look like? Instead of asking you that, I think we'd refer you back to that other episode, because I think both of them did a great job talking about what it can really cost, and the trafficking that happens there, and all those kind of things. And
abandonment. Just there's a lot.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. So I caught you a couple weeks ago when you were in the building on a Sunday morning, and that's where I was kind of like, man, we need to have her on. But one of the questions that popped into my mind as I'm just living through COVID, and every 4 years in the United States we have this thing called an election, and it's really not our best moments, for a country that is the United States. It's probably some of the times we're the most divided. And so I think I was joking with you a little bit about hey, what's it like to leave, Africa and then come back to the United States during this? And I think you mentioned even the last 2 times you've come back have been election years. And so what is that like? How does that even feel like to live somewhere else? And I really realize your politics are not of just one country, but then come back to the U.S. as a citizen,
right?
And what does that look like? Because I don't think a lot of us can understand, as American citizens, this is all we know. What's it look like to come back, and what do people in the other parts of the world think about our political system? And I just love to hear some of that from you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not the most politically informed person.
No, and that's fine. And that's probably as a result in some ways. I'm sure you're not on Twitter every night.
I'm not. Okay. I really am not. And so, but I do think, it is just so polarizing, and everyone is just so in their camp, and so just have their convictions that their side is right, and so I think. Living in Gold Kingdom and with my friends that are, in this little tiny minority of evangelicals, they don't even expect to get any kind of respect as evangelicals from the government. They don't, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think the fact that, we as Christians are just, have our heart set on getting, whoever we think is going to give us more power and respect in office, that we put a lot of weight on that. And that's, Jesus didn't put weight on that. So,
Yeah.
he was mocked and killed so by the government.
Yeah.
So if that's, if we're choosing to follow Christ, then just an element of humility would be, I think a good dose of humility would be good for the church.
Yeah.
But
I mean, is it painful to come back in like the middle of like this season where it feels like, I haven't had to deal with that. I mean, it's a beautiful country, right? The United States, because of our freedoms, because of the what education and just our lives have afforded us. Like it's given great opportunities, but at the same time, I would just imagine like this is exhausting.
You're like, oh my goodness, here we go again. Yes, like it is kind of exhausting. It is just like, it just shows, I think, like just that people, there is a lot of anger and a lot of just, angst about the election. And it just brings out the ugly side in people and not the gracious side in people that would really, draw people into wanting to know about Christ. It's just this anger that you see, and that's ugly. So it is weird to come back during election year.
I think right now, if we're just talking about history in the church, we've got coronavirus stuff happening, and there's safety mandates and all that, and we also have to keep in mind that our framework for the United States was, more based on Christian principles and values, obviously, than where you're at in Gold Kingdom. And so we have different expectations for our Constitution. So I understand like all of that kind of stuff. And hopefully the listener can understand that, we know the standards are just different.
That's right.
But at the same time, I'm curious for you, just what, as we talk and people have talked about, churches closing and persecution that is coming on the church, and sometimes we feel it based off of being told to close our building because of the virus, or just being rejected on social media for having our beliefs in Christianity. What would you say, what's persecution, I guess, look like in Gold Kingdom, and how do you see the differences like weighing out for you as you're here? I'm sure maybe you've heard people talk about, our persecution in America and feel that. How does it feel different where you're living your day-to-day life? Like,
I mean, I think in America we just have had it so easy, and we just really haven't had to suffer. We haven't been face to face with like real overt opposition. I mean, I think, in people's jobs, you can get made fun of or persecuted or on social media, but we're just we've been so comfortable. So to come back and see like, wow, the church really is facing some opposition right now, and that's probably not going to get better. And so it will, I mean, the prayer is it'll strengthen the American church. And I mean, on one hand, with coronavirus, I think the American church has done a good job. I mean, maybe not every church, but a good job of being creative, thinking out of the box, as far as when closing doors, like trying to figure out other ways to build, have community. I mean, we've been blessed with so much infrastructure with the internet and everything, so that's great. But I mean, I think America has really gotten in the rut of just doing their thing, being very comfortable, and that is changing for America. So
if COVID would have hit hard where you're from, like you couldn't just like flip a switch and do your church online, and then be in everyone's houses, and stuff like that.
Exactly. I mean, they did cancel church for about 6 weeks in Gold Kingdom, and that culture doesn't change. I mean, it does change, but it's the fast changes. They're not into that. So they did end up doing a few things on the radio, because a lot of people have like an FM radio, and so that was good. But it just it was more challenging, I think, to really let people think out of the box.
Couldn't just jump on a Zoom call or all that kind of stuff.
School just didn't happen. Kids just didn't get school.
So a couple of questions that people had written in to ask were, what's changed about your ideas of building the kingdom or leading others to Jesus? So what are, I guess, ways of that's shifted since being in Gold Kingdom? Like, what does building the kingdom look like? I think sometimes we can fall into a rut in the United States that it means building more numbers and bigger buildings and our reach and influence growing. And I think those are positive things, but how has your just definition of what building the kingdom means in maybe a society that's not so microwave, that it costs people more to just, you don't just like raise your hand at a gathering and say, yes, I trust Jesus, but there's just that weight.
Yep.
How has building the kingdom and what your role in that shifted, I guess?
Yeah, I think just, again, the emphasis on relationship, that you really are always, usually true change and conversion will come through a relationship. And that's where healthcare just helps you. If you can get in through a medical need, you can jump, you jump a lot of hurdles just because you're automatically in an intimate space with that person, because you're caring for a medical need. And so, I think just through those relationships and then the value of community, because if someone is going to, make a choice for Christ, it's very important that they have community around them, or else they'll fall away. Yeah. And so if it's, it's important, whole families, trying to teach whole families, and the prayer would be whole families would come to Christ, and that is, would be a really great way to build the church. But it's we've talked about on our team and even on a higher level in our organization about having a meaningful, impactful presence. We want to always be meeting some kind of we want to be meaningful for the people there. We want to have a presence that means something. We're not just there to, change their culture, convert them to a new religion. We want to have a meaningful impact into their lives. So, medical care is such an easy way, and it's that's an easy example, but it could be, teaching English or helping with, microenterprise, agriculture projects. There's all kinds of ways to be meaningful to the people, and then you gain those relationships, and then they can see the difference in your life. And so I think that can translate in America, that you've been placed in your job wherever you're working, whether it's sales or a store or a bank. You want in your sphere, or in your neighborhood, in your family, you want to have a meaningful, impactful presence. You want to not just be there to get a paycheck, but why has God put me here, and how can I be meaningful to these people? Is it that they need a community, or that they need a friend, or that maybe they do need a ride to the doctor or some kind of. So Lord, help us open our eyes to ways we can be actually helpful to people around us, even in America. It's easier to see it in a poor country. But I think that can translate to here in America, to give us those relationships we need to show people Jesus, and then gives us that impact to be able to really speak into their lives. Yeah.
Is there a conversion story, or a long haul thing that you can think of, of somebody who came in? I think of, the woman at the well where she was looking for water, right? And I think that's kind of what people come in looking for from you guys,
absolutely.
But then they leave saying, I have a greater need. So
that's right.
What does that look like? Is there a story that you can even think of, and maybe not use a name, but just what that process looks like in what you get to do and how you get to work there?
Yeah. So, I have a story. There's because I've been working with cancer patients over these last few years, you really get to know these people, and you're they in and out for their treatments. They're with us for a long time. And so there was a lady that with her daughter that came in, and she, I'll call her Olga. She came in, had a 3-year-old daughter, and we actually sent her home with pretty good results for cancer. We thought we kind of got it. And then the daughter, Mary, I'll call her Mary, she came down with an infection in her village, and she came back to the hospital too late, and she died. Well, during this whole time, she'd been prayed for and hearing Bible stories. I mean, it's just kind of all mixed in at our hospital. They do prayer rounds, go around to all the rooms and pray for people. And I had been talking to her, and actually another lady that was sharing the same little room as her with another patient with cancer accepted Christ, but she just wasn't ready. And so I thought, when her daughter died, I was like, well, that's just it. I mean, all that stuff we've been praying for, she's going to think it's like worthless.
Yeah.
She's never going to, come to Christ. And so she went back home to her village. I had her phone number, and just because I'd been treating her daughter for so long. Well, she calls me like a month later and says, okay, I'm ready to be baptized now. When can I get baptized? And I was like, really? Like, are you sure? So I went with a local pastor and visited her, and she was ready. She had talked to her husband, and she and her husband gave her permission. So that's a big deal for a woman to get. Her husband wasn't ready to accept the Lord himself, but he was okay with her doing it. And so that just reminded me that it wasn't necessarily like the good outcome for the reason why she would accept Christ. It wasn't that God answered all our prayers for the healing of her daughter, but it was just through that relationship and through seeing the compassion of Jesus through a period of time that drew her to the Lord. And so I think that can apply to anyone's life, that we want, quick answers. But honestly, where we're at with the world, I mean, whether it's in Africa or here, I mean, it sometimes can take, steps like and you can celebrate when you bring someone from like maybe being even anti-Christian to the fact that they're even your friend. I mean, that could be a huge step. And then, you can bring them a little bit farther. So yeah.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's even a grace of God, like that her husband, I don't think I can even grasp that, because I know people in the United States, they're, one of the husband or wife is a believer, and, there's kind of like, yeah, you do your thing, you live your own life. It's cool. Just don't let it, but like, that's just an act of even God's grace there, because it's not that, it's not like, yeah, you just believe in your God and it's cool, but there's a lot of heat that could be applied. So that's even
that's right.
God's goodness and grace that he would, I don't even think we can understand, like, allow that, because it's a totally different kind of regime and thought process over there.
Absolutely.
Cool. So one of the things that has kind of always stuck with me from last time you were here, at the church with our staff, was you just talked about praying, like how how you've learned to pray differently, how the United States, we pray, our biggest prayer points, I think, are safety. And I think you mentioned some other things. What are some of the ways that you've learned to pray differently as a result of living in an anti-Christian country, as a result of the ministry that you get to do over there?
Yeah, well, I think in America, we like, and me included, we like to pray for blessings. I mean, God bless us, keep us comfortable, give us what we need, provide for us, keep us safe. I mean, I think that has just come out huge in this whole COVID thing, that, everyone be safe out there. I mean, how many billboards everywhere, like just saying that. And even, me going, to Africa, be like, be safe over there. And you're like, okay, and then, obviously I want to be safe.
Not going to be reckless.
I'm not going to be reckless. Exactly. But if you're not going to be reckless, then honestly, how much is, safety within your control? So that's a whole nother soapbox I could go into, but I won't.
Sounds fun.
But yeah, so praying instead of, so yes, of course we're supposed to pray for blessings. I mean, that's in the Bible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also in the Bible, it's, we will have struggles, and those struggles are to refine us and to give us perseverance and character and hope. So yeah, there's, I think instead of always praying for blessings and that God will keep us comfortable, there is an element of just praying for, Lord, just build my character and make me into who you want me to be. Help me serve you the best I can, and also just a day-to-day approach, which I am definitely not perfect at it at all, but just a daily, like, here I am, I'm available to serve you, and so use what I have to offer, my little to use the Bible reference, my loaves and fish. Like,
Yeah.
this is what I'm offering for today, Lord. Use that. I'm showing up. I'm available. And whether it's a blessing or something bad that happens, I trust you. And because you're using all of this for your kingdom. And I trust that. So, yeah.
Good. That's good. This is kind of spontaneous, but I was just thinking about it now because how do you not live in fear? Because I think there's so many people, especially right now in the United States, where, whoever we want to blame it on, I think ultimately it's an enemy that wants us to live in
That's
fear
right.
and wants
That's
to
right.
kill, steal, and destroy. And whoever the perpetrators of that
That's
are,
right.
it doesn't really matter. But how do you live a life that is not, because, I mean, there's people kidnapped,
Yeah,
that
that's
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
people who are losing their lives because of,
Yeah.
like, we can't talk about where you're at for very real, dangerous,
Yeah.
that's a reality. And
Yeah.
sometimes we forget about that. Help us. Help me. Like, how do I not live in fear of, like, man, we're making choices. Should I send my kid to school? Should I not do this? How do I live in peace?
Well,
How do you do it?
yeah, I mean, first of all, let's just say that God has wired everyone differently.
Yeah.
So there are some people who are going to be more cautious just with whatever. And some people who would just not be wired to live where I live.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't go there.
Yes.
So, but at the same time, I mean, I think that God does want to push us out of our comfort zone in order to serve him. So whatever degree that looks like for whoever, that in an act of obedience, we should be open to that. And I think culturally we place, I mean, America has such a huge value on safety. And then if that is threatened in any way, it's like everyone just panics and it's so fearful. So I think, having a heavenly perspective, an eternal perspective, like, Lord, if you've ordained my days, and if I'm not going to be reckless, but if you decide to take my life in such a way, then that's been ordained since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And so, just constantly thinking eternally that this world is not my home. I mean, we've talked about, like, we're all in limbo right now. Well, really, we're all in limbo until we're in heaven, right?
Yeah, that's good.
And so, the daily, like, focus on Christ. I mean, that is hard for me because I'm not perfect at it, but I do think God has helped me to kind of take life in shorter chunks of time, to not put so much weight on what culture thinks is important here, family, safety, health. Those are temporary. They're going to go away. But God's kingdom is what lasts. And so I want to focus on that. And so that really helps, like, eliminate fear. But I still do sometimes get that angst in my stomach when I hear of tragedies happening over there, because it is, I mean, COVID is not their problem over there.
Yeah.
They have some real security concerns.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And I think that's a reminder for all of us because it's easy to be grasped by fear, especially when safety is one of our primary longings and desires. So, how would you say, and you touched on this briefly, but your view of the kingdom of God, you said it's not about safety and it's not about family. It's not those temporal things. Like, how do you continue to press into, like, that eternal view? Like, what drives you to continue to press into, like, okay, this isn't just about this, taking life in shorter chunks. How do you do it?
So I, of course, just staying close to the Lord in reading the Bible and prayer and being in community with people that are going to help me do that. I mean, help me think that way.
Yeah.
And then just, that power, just your mind, capturing those thoughts and not letting, when I get really anxious about the future or nervous about this or that the Lord would just, that he just kind of is my steady anchor. that it's like, you know what, I've got you. I have a few images in my mind that sometimes I'll bring up that I feel like God has given me through the years to say, like, I'm with you. I'm with you, Carey. Like, I'm never going to let you go. I care about every single detail of your life. And so you don't have to be afraid, because I'm with you. I got this. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Well, I'm so grateful for your time. I'm grateful
Thanks.
for the ministry that you're doing, and that some tiny little church in Omaha somehow gets to be a part of what God's doing over there. Any just specific ways we can be praying for you, praying for the ministry happening there, that the listeners can.
Yeah, pray for our national partners. I mean, they are really, they're the frontline workers. Honestly, they are in the trenches, and it is not easy for them. These local pastors, these medical workers, the nationals that are there just treating these patients, and pray for wisdom for them, and even like they're doing diagnosing and surgeries and all the things they're doing at the hospital, and then our pastors as they're daily slugging it out, just trying to pray for people and tell people about Christ. I mean, they really are the heroes in this. And then, and also, do pray for our security situation. I mean, it's escalating, it's getting worse, and so we're just really in a time of discernment as far as us as a team, Westerners, our presence there, and so you can pray for that.
Good. Appreciate it. So we'll be praying for those things. Any last things that you're like, hey, this is a thing when I have a captive audience, stop whining, any, you're like, whatever you want to say to us, that something God's put on your heart, some motto you have, anything like that.
Yeah. I think just as a closer, this whole idea of like, let the Lord be your anchor. Just don't get swayed by social media and just what's temporary, kids going to school, not going to school, the number of coronavirus cases, and, that yes, those things are swirling around us, and it's important to be informed, but that God really is our anchor, and He, and so whatever you're going through, to just really try to just focus your mind on the Lord, and however, so if it's music or Bible reading or whatever is going to help you do that, nature, find those ways, those practical ways, and do it just to focus your mind on the Lord and His He never changes. So
yeah, that's so good. Like what I want to do when the boat starts rocking is I want to say, get me a flight out of here. Like, yes. I want to call helicopter Jesus to come and drop his ladder, and so I can climb out. And so I need a reminder to say, no, he's your anchor. He's like, I'm with you in the middle of the storm. That's right. And this thing's not going to go anywhere. It's rocking. It's scary. It's freaky. But I think that's the comfort that I desire.
That's the comfort. He's with you in the boat, and maybe he's not going to get you out of the boat at that moment, but he's with you, and focusing on that is going to, if we're going to use the boat analogy, driving the anchor down instead of the helicopter getting us out. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's so much of my prayer life is like, get me out of here.
Yeah. No. I prayed that one too.
Yeah. So that's so good. Well, thanks for being here. Mm-hmm. Again, we're like, it really is humbling for me to get to listen to your story.
Thanks for having me.
What God's doing.
Yeah, just pray that this translates to whatever situations people are in.
All right. Well, hopefully our listeners are praying for you. Thanks. And God bless, and keep it Christian.
Thanks.
Alex, thank you for taking the time to sit down with Carey and have that conversation. It's a good perspective to have. Sometimes it's humbling, it's refreshing, and it's valuable all around. Are there any insights that you took from that?
No, I remember, and she brought it up then, but like one of the just biggest things that stuck out to me was, and she came to our staff development, I alluded to that, but there's that idea of how we pray, especially for our kids, and we pray for safety and all of those things that are a priority: comfort, safety, affluence, blessings, all of those kinds of things. And so that's just been always indoctrinated and pre-programmed into me. And not that they're bad things, but they're not ultimate things that Christ even taught us to pray for. If you look at the Lord's Prayer and the ways that He modeled it, it wasn't for safety. And it's okay to long for and want those things, but that's just stuck with me, and I'm grateful for. You're just humbled to get to do that. I mean, what she's doing, speaking of Black Panther earlier, I mean, literally real life hero that doesn't get a lot of recognition for what she's doing in the kingdom. So
I thought what she had to say about safety was just
I did too.
so inspiring. It was just like,
when she was like, Americans are so concerned with safety, like our government, and she's like, you have no clue.
Well, and she's like, if you're not going out of your way to be unsafe,
Right.
then that shouldn't always probably be our primary or our paramount prayer request, you know?
yeah. And there are different government structures and all that kind of stuff that they have to lean on than we have to lean on and stuff like that. So I think there's perspective that belongs to it. But I can't imagine just her perspective of where she lives, where she comes from. And then it's like, I get to come back at like every time when America's at its worst, when they're always fighting and there's always not actual civil war, but it feels like it if you look on social media. So.
Yeah.
One thing I appreciated about Carey in that conversation that you had with her was just how, like you're saying, she comes back during these very tense times, unsure times, but she is so calm. She's so well spoken, and she truly has an eternal perspective. Even when she's talking through a simple question, she's just very gifted in being able to articulate that in a way that really, really spoke to my heart. One of the things that I loved about her talking in the hospital was just talking about how having the hospital is such an outreach and a ministry in the area that she's in, and how the hospital is really is a place to soften the soil in people's hearts for maybe spiritual needs or deeper conversations. And I was just thinking during that part of your conversation with her, Alex, of just how that's how Jesus ministered too. He met people's physical needs a lot of times first. If you look at, like, he fed them or he healed them, and then he spiritually met them. And I love seeing that playing out in this hospital and just how she's ministering to people.
And I think part of
really
that difficulty too is you are doing that out of following Christ, and then there's not a guarantee how people are going to respond. Like you mentioned, like Jesus always met those physical needs, and usually he brought him into more of a spiritual need. Like he fed the 5,000, he fed the 4,000, and then all of a sudden, like the next day, he's like, "You guys are coming for bread, but I've got something so much better." But then they're like, "Oh, peace out. We just wanted the bread," you know. And so I think that's the other difficult part when you give your life to that, and then you do kind of turn it around and you bring that spiritual need that we're like. And there's the sovereignty of God that I have to just trust being obedient and faithful, and that he's going to be the one that provides the fruit and the results. So,
Yeah, I think one thing that she said that really kind of stuck out to me was the cultural Christianity. Like that term really was like, oh, cultural Christianity. I've never even thought about it in that way, but like in America, you can be a Christian and it's just a culture. It's just kind of part of your day-to-day, you know, just what you do, like on the weekend. I'm a Christian, but over there it means such a different thing. And I think that word Christian we almost need to reclaim it a little bit here in America, because I just like it's like if you say it, it's not just like a nonchalant like, oh, I'm a Christian. It's like they are giving up so much to say something like that, and the fact that they're walking miles to go to church, and like the things that they're doing. And then I just think about sometimes just here in America, and I think we are becoming more and more aware of this, but the reality of like, well, I'm going to pick this church because they have better coffee, or, you know, I like that drummer better, you know, just things like that. And they're like, I'm picking this church because it's closer than having to walk 3 hours. I only have to walk 2 hours, you know, like, I mean, that is just amazing, and just really helps change your perspective of what is church, and what am I giving up to go to church, and how should I be viewing my time there.
And just how much it seemed like there was just an urgency and an excitement and a passion about going to church. To hear that they would spend some Sundays, like the whole day, they would stay after church and fast and pray just the rest of the day. Like, could you imagine
services
that?
Are longer.
Could you imagine that here, though, being like, okay, yeah, all right, we had our service, but now let's all stay and fast and pray the rest of the day. Like, people would be like, oh, well,
and I think
got my things to do.
You know? And I think it points even more to God and the power of like who God is, because it doesn't make sense. Like what they're doing doesn't make sense, but it's like because of God and like who he is and his love, and like who, you know, they love him so much that they're doing something like that doesn't make sense. It's just so powerful.
Well, and you have to read scripture differently because they're coming from a different context, which is probably more towards the original people that scripture was written to and Jesus was ministering to. Of like, we read passages like, to follow me you have to hate your mother and your father and be abandon them, and we're like, that doesn't even make sense. But for these people, it means you're leaving everything. You're not hating them, you're hating like less, you're hating like who your family is, what your identity was rooted in, everything that you have known in order to come and follow me. And so we can't even wrap our minds around that all the time. But then I think there's that guilt thing that we don't want to throw. Like, I remember growing up, a pastor saying, kind of using it like, you guys can't get out of your air-conditioned houses to get into your air-conditioned cars to come into our air-conditioned building because it's too hot outside. And then they would drive that like, come to this place out of like fear or like this weird shame. Yeah. And so I don't think that's where we're going either. No. But it does bring a new perspective toward what do I, and not even just a program either, but what can I not live without that's a part of community and part of church? And if there's something that's not a part of that you belong to in being a part of the church, I think you're missing something. I would hope no one's thinking we're trying to shame them by that conversation, but I think it comes to the point that we need to realize that church isn't about us. Like, a lot of times it's what we want to make it about is about me and about what my preferences are and what my comforts are. And so I think it's looking at the way they treat it, and it's like they're not comfortable. They're making a difficult choice to say a Christian. I mean, for years in America, like, you'd stop on the side of the road and hear help someone with a flat tire, and you'd hear someone say, well, that's just a Christian thing to do. Whether they like practiced or believed or not, it was just it's that Christian culture mentality of like, well, this is what it really means, but really they are paying a lot more for this belief. So. And really, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are disappointed with heaven if they've made it all about their preferences and about us. We were reading that today in Revelation 4 that Mark's going to be talking about in a few weeks, and it's like, man, so much of heaven is not about about us at all, or our preferences, and we can't wrap our minds around that because we won't even want it to at that moment. It reminded me actually of bringing it back to, I'm not even Jesus juking this, I'm Black Panther juking it, which is weird. It reminded me of that moment at the end of that movie, after his cousin had come back and he's like longing for Wakanda, and then he's like, my father always told me this is like the most beautiful sunset that there could be, and he takes him there and he's like, this is the place that I imagined. And there's a scene inside of Chronicles of Narnia too, where the unicorn comes in at the end, is like, this is home. This is the home I've always longed for, but I could never actually dream. But now I'm here, and I think we're gonna have that similar experience. But then we realize that's not about me and my preferences and what I like. So
that's good.
Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts that they want to share desperately?
I just liked how she shared, like when she was talking about prayer, just that being in that position of prayer of like, Lord, help us to see how we can be helpful. And just she's just a person she's in a position where she's seeing a lot of people that need help, but just she's still praying that prayer, and she's still asking the Lord for guidance in that. And I was very impacted by that, and just how I can apply that to my life of just how can I be helpful? Like, God, what do you have for me? Like, we have our own agendas or our own ideas of that, but asking God to speak into that, I mean, what he would do or what he would say if we asked.
Just get ourselves out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah. She's one of those people that as I finish that conversation, I'm like, I want to be more like Carey, because if I'm more like Carey, then I'll be like more like Jesus. Yeah. And so it was a cool conversation to have.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Carey, for taking that time and sharing with us. Just it's one of those things that I feel like I could go back and re-listen to it again just to like gather more from it. It's really good stuff. Thanks to everyone here for joining us, and for anyone listening or watching, we appreciate it. We'd also love to hear from you. If you have questions or comments, concerns, you can reach out to us on social media at CCC Omaha, or you can send us an email to podcast@cccomaha.org. We'd love to hear from you. Until then, we'll talk to you later.